Like I ended up doing like 350K.
350K.
370. I'm like 26 years old.
At 26 years old, 370K.
And so I'm like, yo, this is too much
come
money.
on, dude.
I'm like, this is too much money to be just like, so I bought 2 houses.
I'm Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people create lives of freedom and impact through success in tech sales and the pursuit of self-development. I've got an amazing guest for us today. He's a hometown hero in my book, from Naples, Florida, Mikey Plancher. He's actually originally from Haiti. He came to this country and crushed it in tech sales, and now he's set up to retire before 30. Can you believe that? That's what's possible on this amazing tech sales path. Today, we're going to learn from him on his journey into Dell technologies and vast data, on the forefront of AI and innovation, and what it takes to succeed from a mindset, habits, and high-performance perspective. Make sure to take notes and share this conversation with more people who could benefit from the message. And with that, let's turn it over to Mikey. Mikey, thanks so much for being here, man.
Absolutely. And I guess I'll make a point of clarification. So I'm first-generation American.
Oh,
my parents are both from Haiti. My brother and sister were both, my older brother and sister were both born in Haiti. And then when they made the journey across the pond, I say the pond, but it's not like London to America, but from Haiti to Miami, I was born in Naples. So first generation American, my family is actually super massive. So that in itself was always cool to me. Both my parents have like over 12 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
So me being first generation was always a big thing. And then going to college made it even a bigger thing. And so yeah, very thankful. But yeah, Mikey Plancher, originally from Naples, Florida.
Let's go Naples.
Yeah.
What a bubble.
Yeah.
Okay, quick. Describe Naples for the audience.
So it's always so funny. Whenever you tell people you're from Naples, it's like either you migrate there or your grandparents are from there. Or they like your grandparents live there. Like that's always like the thing. People are like, well, yeah, my grandparents have a house there. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But I was actually born in Naples, downtown, at the hospital in '96, the last year that they actually did at the end, the downtown NCH.
Florida man does this. So and I always introduce myself, watch out, I'm a Florida man.
You know what's funny? I actually counter that against people. I'm like, technically, it's not the Florida people that are crazy. It is the migration from everybody else from the north that comes down. It's something about the sun and what it does to them. You know what I mean? Like, that's my take on it. Because everybody's always like that you're from Florida. I'm like, listen, there's more people from out of the country that come in, or out of the state that come into the state that come with all the craziness. And maybe, out
of the country too, by the way. I mean, how about Miami? It's like going to Latin America.
I mean, to be honest, I am Caribbean, so I actually love it, right? You go every corner, you can get some good, you get some good food, you know what I mean? So,
hablo español.
Yeah, right? Like, I do like the fact that we're being brought up in Florida is such a diverse place, especially, like I always tell people, I'm like, they used to hate this. If you're from Northern Florida, I'm like, yeah, we don't claim y'all. Anything below like Tampa is like Tampa down and all to the East Coast, all the way down, that's Florida. But if you do anything above that, that's like, you're Alabama, you're Georgia, you're North Carolina, you're not really Florida, is how I always said it. But yeah, definitely, excited to be on this podcast with you. I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by people that have been able to help me progress in my career. We joked about this last time when we spoke. When I was 5 years old, I knew what I wanted to do. So I'm not necessarily surprised about where I am and what I've been able to achieve. It was always kind of planned out. And it's very weird. One of my biggest driving factors, and you had asked me this question too, my parents, man. Like my dad, when I was a kid, he worked, and still to this day, he still works, but he worked his butt off, I only saw him on Sundays when we were going to church. He worked 7 days a week, came home at, 11 o'clock, would come and see us in our rooms, peek in, say hello, be in bed by 12, wake up at 4 o'clock to go
Oh my gosh, again. 4 hours sleep.
Yeah.
It's grinding.
And he did that for 20 years straight. So like for me, my biggest thing was never to disappoint him. Like I never got bad grades and they never asked me about grades. That's like one thing is like interesting in the Haitian
So they never
household.
asked you?
Yeah. So in the Haitian community, we have these 3 things that we always say, like l'école, lakay, l'église, right? L'école means school, lakay means home, and then l'église means church. Those are the 3 things. We don't sleep over at people's houses. Like we don't do extracurricular activities really like that. Outside like doing stuff for the church or school. So that's how we were pretty much brought up. You know what I mean? And my biggest thing was I never wanted to disappoint my parents. So I never got in trouble. They never asked me about my grades. It was an expectation because I was given the opportunity to be born here, because I was given the opportunity to go to school, to take advantage of it. And if I didn't, that was like me slapping them in the face, you know what I mean, in a way. And so like I took that personally. So like when I was in like kindergarten, I walk, when you go to the stage and they're like, what do you want to be? And I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to be in music. That was like my two things,
wow.
right? And then 5th grade, it was the same thing, entrepreneur and music. And the music part of it is like, I always love music. That's like, you can take everything out of the world from me. I love sales. Take everything away from me, leave me my keyboard or leave me some music, and I'm fine, right? So I got, like, when I say always knew what I wanted to do, I was building computers, when I was in 2nd grade. I had this teacher named Mrs. Thorson, Patty Thorson. Shout out to her, man.
Shout out to Patty Thorson?
Yeah.
Patty.
Man, like, she is one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met. She was actually my sister's 3rd grade teacher, and I was in kindergarten at the time. And she got very close to my sister and ultimately very close to myself as well. And she was, it's so funny how all of this ties back in. She was a lady that was in tech, right? Back in, the early 2000s. I mean, really she learned all this stuff in the 90s, but for her to be in her position to understand all that she did around computers and then be able to transfer that knowledge to myself was amazing at that time too. So she made it a point to like teach me everything. So I was, learning how to take apart computers, projectors, putting them all back together, putting OS on computers, building them soup to nut. Like I was in sales. By the time I was 3rd grade, I knew how to build a computer from start to finish, right?
I still don't know how to build a computer. Not even close. That's crazy, dude.
Well, computers comparably to what it looks like today versus what it was back then,
but
right?
Still.
You remember the E-machines and the Dell towers, the HP towers. People used to throw them out all the time because they didn't know how to really fix them, right? At the time, we're still learning. So it was like, I learned that in my community, people weren't able to afford to go buy brand new computers for $600, $700, $800 at that time. So what I would do is I would take the used parts. Every Saturday, me and my little brother would go right around our neighborhood, and we would pick up computers that people had left out for trash because they didn't know how to fix them. And it'd be like a failed hard drive. So all I needed to do is go buy a new hard drive. It'd be a failed motherboard. All I needed to do was buy another motherboard or a memory stick, whatever the case may have been. All I did was refurbish them, and I was selling them at $250. So like by the time I was in middle school, I had a consistent business, me and my little brother, and we were just selling computers to people. And then that was like the catastrophic, that was the big change.
So
That's
you
what
started to
catalyzed.
sell as a young kid.
Oh, yeah,
Like how did you sell as a kid those computers? Like
Church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
what was your pitch?
Well, look, it wasn't.
Or did you pitch?
There wasn't really a need for a pitch, right? It's like, hey, I understand that you guys need computers at the home, right? Your kids are coming, like they're coming
You're
home.
saying this as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, like I know, like
You're telling adults this?
Well,
or to the kid, you were working through the kid influencers.
You know what
this
it
is hilarious.
You know what it is? It's like parents, and I'm not a parent yet, but I know that the hardest thing for a parent to do, one of the hardest things for them to do is to say no or not be able to provide. Or when a kid wants something, you can't give it to them. Nothing more breaks the heart. And I've seen that on my parents' face. So I knew that like with computers in specific, everybody else, like Naples is a rich city, right? I didn't necessarily grow up in a rich side of town, but I grew up in the middle part of town where some kids had computers and it was like they had an advantage, whereas other kids like myself didn't have computers. We were at a disadvantage. So I was like, okay, I know that you may not be able to afford $600, $700 for a brand new computer, but you can pay $200, you can pay $250, right? And then
you found like the mid-market.
Dude,
that's amazing. And that was like me, by the way, like there are homes there. I hear there's a $200 million home and there's crazy wealth.
The most expensive
We're
home
of moderate means, our family,
America.
But it's amazing some of the wealth there.
Yeah, I mean, it's far and wide, right? Like, I grew up on the east side of Naples, right? East side of Naples is, the 34112 area code, and Lely and all that.
Lely, yeah. I was born in Lely.
All right.
I was born, where the horses are in that community.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my parents' house their current home is right behind where the horses are.
Okay.
In the manor. So
the audience is probably like where the horses are. Yeah.
It's a very beautiful place.
I took a prom picture with my buddy Smith St. Teal.
I took a prom picture there too.
And dude, I didn't have a date.
Wait, St. Teal, he's Haitian?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I know him.
Yeah. Like, so we need to talk about that offline. So we have like a bunch of mutual friends.
Of course.
But we took a picture and neither of us had actual dates. So it was us together, bro dates.
Oh.
Come a long way since then.
All right,
anyways.
You're going to hate me because my high school, experience was.
I bet you were crushing it, dude. You were like a star athlete, right? Weren't you? You ended up playing football in college.
Yeah.
And you're the running back.
Yeah,
the running back's the coolest. One of the coolest.
It is one of the coolest positions. I'm not even gonna lie. I feel it's kind of funny talking about it now because it's very corny. And we were talking about corny before we started this, but like my high school experience was very unique in the sense of it was kind of like a fairy tale. Like freshman year, I came in. I had just came off of I was playing football for the Naples Gators at the time, and we had went undefeated, won we were on the Orange Bowl, and everything was great. Like people were curious on what school or high school I was going to go to, but everybody knew ultimately I would end up going to Lely. Shout out to Lely High School. That's where all my family went to play football.
I played baseball against them.
Hey, so
we beat y'all.
Hey,
Let's
listen,
go.
All right, look.
Let's go.
We had our challenges, but if you know anything about Lely, my cousin Mikey Plancher passed away back in 2008. He was one of the top football players in the entire country at the time. Ended up going to UCF on a full ride scholarship, and ultimately passed away during spring training practice. So,
oh my gosh,
the football field itself is actually named Plancher's Place. So that's
a great name.
Like being named after my family is already like me going into high school. 2 years later, obviously like that was like for me. Continuing that legacy was a big thing for me. But going back to like the whole prom and all that, and why I bring this up is. I had a fairy tale. Like all 4 years, I was on the homecoming court, and
all 4 years,
And senior year, I was the prom king. What I mean? Like I had a very fairy tale. I wore number one. Like I was, I was humble. But also at the same time, it wasn't like I wasn't that traditional like douchebag like football player, and I was smart. I had 3.5 GPA.
Yeah.
I worked 2 jobs. While playing football, while playing basketball, while running
you
track.
work hard and knowing you. It's just like you know what I mean? You always were that way.
I knew what the end goal was, right? Like, so I didn't party or drink or do any of that in high school, like at all. Nobody can ever say they saw me in a party ever in high school. You know what I mean? That's kind of like rare to hear because in Naples, there's some crazy parties that happen in Port Royal and some of the
nice
CSM
areas.
kids. Yeah. And I never was part of that, but I was friends with all of them. It's just when they were partying, I was working. And a lot of their parents took interest in me because of that. And that kind of leads into what we'll end up talking about too, and my mentors and how they have helped me progress in life because they've played a significant role. It started off with Patty Thorson, man.
Yeah, Patty.
Always, man,
seriously, I mean, you got to give credit to the people that lifted us up along the way. Like, no one who has achieved greatness has done it alone.
You can't do it alone.
So we'll talk more about that. I do want to start to shift towards how you found out about tech sales and what drew you to it. You end up working at Dell, which is one of the greatest companies in the world you could ever cut your teeth on in sales.
Yeah.
So, I would like to talk about what drew you to tech sales. Like, how did you even find out about this path that you've just destroyed it on, and now you're set up to basically retire before 30 like you originally said you would, which is nuts. So how did you find out about tech sales?
Yeah, so I guess a great segue into that is, learning from Mrs. Thorson at the time, that really helped me, like, hone in on my craft. Like, the business side of things, I was like, yo, I'm pretty good at this. I'm 9, 10 years old, 11 years old. I'm making $1,000, a month or whatever,
dude,
just selling computers.
Wait, okay, that's nuts. At 9 or 10 years old,
dude, I would.
You're an entrepreneur.
It was so funny. Like I had stacks of hundreds at all times in my pocket in middle school, and by the time I was like, by the end of my 8th grade year, I was one of 2 freshmen that bought a car, like straight cash, like. My freshman year, I couldn't even drive the thing. I was driving up and down my driveway. You know what I mean? But I was like, I made this money. I'm going to buy a car. It was like just a natural
driving
thought.
On your driveway.
Yeah. But from the tech perspective was learning that from Mrs. Thorson at that time kind of helped me get to where I needed to be. And then football plays a huge role into it too. So we talked about this last time. I used to take the CAP bus from East Naples to downtown Naples, right? And on downtown Naples, obviously, very prominent people live in Port Royal. I had the opportunity to play for Naples Gators. Shout out to Naples Gators because without them, that organization, the people that took interest in me, Steve Quinn, Patrick Gould, Coach Zablo, Coach John Newberry, Ed Wilson, all those people helped me kind of build me into the man that I am today, right? Like, and I bring this up because when I went over across town, I had the opportunity to meet this man named Chris Riley. Chris Riley at the time, all his sons, they were all quarterbacks, right? They were cold. Every one of them were cold. And they were like the perfect age where, I was playing with the oldest son, they had a young son, middle son, and they had a young son. And they were all the quarterbacks for the entire organization, right? So they were super cool. And their dad at the time was the global VP for HPE at the time.
Another great company.
Yeah, and that's when HPE was at their pinnacle. He was running that organization from a sales perspective. And I became very close with the older son, Connor Riley, one of my closest friends. Actually lives here in Austin. Him and I worked at Dell together, and he's crushing it in the tech space too. So it's, everything comes back in full circle. But I saw, like, one day I ended up going to their house in Port Royal, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is a massive house. This is the biggest house I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Coming from my side of town, I'm like, this is a $14 million home, and it's beautiful. And, he had the Mercedes S550. And I'm sorry, like, talking about materialistic things, but for me on my side of town, my mom, first and foremost, never went to school. So she had no formal education, no elementary, no middle school, no high school. But she was able to raise 5 incredible kids that have been able to do well, right? My brother's a doctor. I'm in tech. My sister's a nurse. My other sister's in school to be a nurse. And then my brother is in the military, served the country, is now as a federal agent for the country. So, like,
thank you for your service, man.
Yeah,
respect that.
My parents are everything, right? Like my mom, my dad busted his butt. My mom raised us. We all have done well. So for her to be able to, she did, like, gotta give a shout out to my moms. But Chris Riley, I saw what he was doing, and I was like, this is incredible. Like, one day I was like, okay, Mr. Riley, like, what do you do? And he was like, I do tech sales. And I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, come on, man. I'm like, normally you see anybody that lives in Port Royal, like, people started their own businesses. They were lawyers, they were doctors, right? Like, you're high up on the food chain. And in tech sales, I never thought that you could make multi-million dollars.
You have a $14 million home and you're in tech sales.
Yeah. And I'm like, and he is young at the time and he is crushing it in life. So I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? And I'm like 12 years old at this time.
You're 12.
Yeah. And I'm like, what do I need to do? And he was like, listen, continue to do what you do, stay in school, work your butt off. When the time comes, I'll help you get your first foot in the door.
Wow.
And, like, fast forwarding to, getting through high school, finally making it to college. I went to the University of South Swanee in Tennessee, right? Very prominent school, tough to get through, right? Like, our exams were brutal. My first year, I struggled, right? Not only just playing football. Football was like that was my holding pitch, right? That and lifting weights.
Yes.
But being at that school was very tough. It taught me a lot. When it came to my junior year, or actually, let's say my sophomore year, right? Sophomore year, I had the opportunity to go intern at one of our alumni's company in South Carolina, Charleston. Shout out to Canty Tech, right, consulting in South Carolina. Willis Canty took a liking to me and brought me under his wing. That's when I told you I did the administrative assistant for him.
Yeah.
Learned everything. He was a managed service provider at the time and serviced a lot of the local school districts.
Explain real quick for the audience who doesn't know what a managed service provider is.
Yeah, so an MSP is what we typically call them. They basically they provide services for companies or organizations that don't necessarily have the IT help. They're an extension of them, right? So they have numerous amount of clients of different verticals that they provide an IT service to. Right, they host all their data, they manage their data, they provide the IT service from a soup to nut perspective.
Beautiful.
And he's been able to grow his company. They've been, for the last 15 years, have been the fastest growing 2,000 company on that list of 2,000 companies for like 15 years straight. He's crushing it. And he took me under his wing, taught me a ton of how to operate a business, how to run a business, how to build relationships with customers. And his ability to do that was phenomenal, right? Had the Southern charm. Carried himself very well. People loved speaking to him. So I took a lot of that I learned from him and applied it to myself, right? Put that in the toolbox. But also at the same time, he gave me hands-on experience. So I learned how to rack and stack servers and networking and storage. So I'll tie this back into the tail end of it, but learning how to do that physically, I was like, okay, cool. Put that in my toolbox as well. So did my time with Canty Tech. Learned a ton over that summer, went back to school for my junior year and, grind, did what I had to do. When it came to the tail end of my junior year, I was like, okay, I need another internship. And this was that opportunity, cashing in on that, hey, I'll help you get that first foot in the door. And the first foot in the door wasn't like, hey, you're getting this job automatically. It's like, no, I will introduce you and you have to go through the interviewing process. You have to work your way. You have to make, you
got to close the deal.
And that's all I could ask for. Mr. Riley has always been straightforward and honest with me. Never expected anything out of it.
Dude,
he always
respect
told
to
me,
him for opening the door. I mean, that's what more can you ask for?
And the amount of people that he's opened the door for in our industry, like anybody that you could probably think of at Google, they know him for a fact. Anybody that's in a leadership position knows of Chris Riley. he's that guy. Man is brilliant, the most charismatic. The way that he speaks, like I try to imitate it and emulate it all the time because it's so captivating. And he genuinely wants to listen, learn, understand, solve problems, and bring resolutions to it. So like Chris Riley, man,
damn,
I love you. He actually adopted my little cousin when we were younger. So like, not he's not just a mentor. He's somebody I see as a father
family.
figure. Yeah, like,
dude.
Yeah, that's
a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So extremely thankful for him. But yeah, so going through that process was super helpful. He, going through the interview process, they liked me, they loved me. Like, cool, great. You got the opportunity to go up to Boston and do your internship, right? I was like,
quick thing.
Yeah.
What did they ask you in the interview process? It was a long time ago. Okay.
That was like 10 years ago, dog.
Okay. So we can keep moving, but I'm always curious because there's folks out here in the audience that want to know how to succeed in interviews. We could talk more as we get further in your journey on getting into Dell and Vast. However, was it like super simple? Like, why do you want to be here? Like, or if you don't remember, that's cool, by the way. It's 10 years.
They ask you questions about your character. Kelly Dostal was the lady that ran the Inside program at the time under the leadership of Jason Ramsey, which they're both, still there, still crushing it. Incredible people and helped me through my process as well. But one of the questions that always resonated to me, and it's because of the story I was able to tell, and that's really what I think kind of helped me get the job. And that's the only reason why I remember it, because it was that impactful. It was, tell us a time where you faced a challenge and you had to overcome it. And how did you overcome it? Right?
Amen, dude. That is a question everyone needs to be prepared for, and we need to hear your answer.
Yeah, so my freshman year, and there's only literally, I can honestly say there's only like 10 people that know of this story. So now I'm going to say it and I'm going to feel kind of embarrassed. But it kind of goes well with what we're ultimately...
Dude, this is going to serve the audience, like to see the real deal of like what a strong, compelling answer looks like.
Yeah.
So, dude, thank you for being willing to go there.
Yeah, it's embarrassing to be honest, but there's humility in it too. My freshman year, right, going into college, I ended up getting a concussion in one of our games, and it was like a 3-part series of a concussion. Like I'm on kickoff, the ball's in the air. I'm one of the 2 deep guys. My buddy Charlie Paul is on my left side, and they kick the ball, and 2 guys let 2 guys free on the end, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking up, and he's about to catch the ball, and they're coming down. They're about to annihilate him, and I'm like, oh man, like I got to go protect him. So I run across the field, and I run into both of them. Boom. And I come off the sideline, and I'm bloody. Like I got the scar still on my face because just my helmet had blown off my head, like ripped, and
they were coming that fast, and you didn't have enough momentum.
Kickoff dudes are coming full speed,
dude, and you're like in battle, like you're like, I'm gonna take the bullet for my buddy, basically.
Well, the thing is, he's in the most vulnerable position. He can't wave it off at this point.
Dude, he would have got destroyed.
He would have got destroyed. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna run across the field. I'm gonna take this hit for him.
Dude,
took that hit, and that was like the first series of that. I said it happened. It was like a series of 3 different hits that happened consecutively throughout that game, and within a 10-minute period. So that happens. I'm like, damn, all right, get patched up, get cleaned up, get back in the game. I had to go block this linebacker on the very next play. Linebackers, I'm 5'8", 205, man. I'm solid, but I'm not a linebacker in college size. He was 6'2", 245. And I come up and I block him and I hit him dead, we hit each other dead in the face. I'm like, okay. And I get back in the line, I get back in the huddle, and my linemen are all 6'5", and they're looking down on me. They're like, Mikey, you're all right? Because my eyes are spinning. And you talking about seeing the little birds and as a kid, you actually do see stars sometimes when you do get your clock run. I'm like, oh my God, like, oh, this hurts. The very next play, they give me the ball, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" I'm like, I gotta go for this sweep and catch this ball. So, and it's so funny because I remember this so vividly. I get the ball and I get smacked by a safety. Right, technically I fumbled, but I fell on the ball because I couldn't even. Like I caught it, but I felt like I got hit, and so it wasn't good. And I was like, "Yeah." I looked at my coach. I said, "I need to be out." I got to the sideline and I was like, "This is a true concussion. I am feeling it." So fast forward. I spent that happened in October. All in the month of November, I was basically like bedridden, right? Didn't have any blood on my brain. They ran through all the scans, went to the hospital, all that. So that was all good. It checked out. But I was extremely sensitive to light, couldn't eat anything. I had to stay in my room in complete darkness for like 30 days. And
in darkness, that's depressing.
yeah, it
You
was
need the
depressing.
sunlight.
That was a very tough time for me. Now think about it, November, right? We got finals coming up in December. And so I couldn't take any of my finals. And I also, it was like, they gave me an ultimatum. They're like, hey, you can either take an extra semester on a tell-in and call this one a wash, or you can just fail this one and then try to come back next semester and get your grades back up. And so I was like, I don't want to be a super senior at the time, right?
Yeah.
And I also I wanted to get out to the field. I want to be done with college as quick as possible. So I was like, you know what? I'll just bite the bullet. I'll try to do these exams, knowing that I missed 45 days at this point from school, and I was completely behind on the material. So I took the exams, but failed most of them, right? Ended up with a 1.75 GPA. That's the part where I'm like, not that many people knew that. And I always tell my little brother this because my little brother looks up to me, and I've always kept everything to myself. I'm not an emotional person. I keep everything to myself. I got to always be strong. It's always been my thing, right? And so for him, he always thought it was like, peaches and cream and everything's all good. And I'm like, nah, I told him and he was going through a tough patch, and I used that story. I was like, hey, I had a 1.75 GPA in college. I got a letter in January that following year saying that I'm on academic probation. And if I don't get my grades up this semester, I'll be kicked out of college. And I came back, recovered, went home during December for Christmas break, recovered, and came back and I crushed it, got a 3.5 GPA, helped myself balance itself out, so my grades were back up. So I say that story to say is that's what I used on that interview. I was like,
it's powerful.
I went through that process and I was able to come back, get my GPA up, and then ultimately, move into a place where I ended up technically being able to graduate early, right?
Wow.
My last semester of college, it was in Europe. I told you I spent like 4 or 5 months in Europe, living in London, and was able to travel. So when I came back to the States, I had already had a job, right? So like, I'm going to Dell. I know I'm good. I'm moving to Texas. I'm happy as heck, right? So it just, from a timeline perspective, I was able to go get over that hurdle, reinvent myself, challenge myself. Because a lot of people, you deal with that situation. Some people may not have been able to deal with it the way I did. And that's the story I told. And they're like, okay, if in sales, you're not always guaranteed to win all the deals that you walk into, right? And that we could talk about cold calling. Like Dell EMC's sales program is super rigorous, right? Not only the vetting part of it, but also going through the associate program, right? You're doing $100 a day. You got to get 6 appointments in a week. You have to do 2-hour talk time every day, right? Those metrics are what the standards are. And it may sound like easy to some folks, but it's not easy. When you got to call somebody, you got to make $100 and people are hanging up on you. It's one of the most humbling things ever because you think you're the hottest thing ever, and people are like, "Yep, click, and then you got to just keep doing it, And that part of it is it correlates to who you are, and that's why they ask those very specific questions about your character, not necessarily about what you know about tech, what you know about business, Because I know a lot of people there's a ton of people that came in with, oh, I got a master's in business, or I got a master's in computer science. Like I'm gonna be great at this job, and they didn't pan out, right? And the program that I interviewed for, they wanted you to come with the empty slate, but they wanted you to have a baseline of being able to overcome adversity, be able to deal with, the challenges of doing sales and how hard it can be at times, right? It's daunting, right? We do a job that's high rewarding, but it's high stress, right? That's what it is. So
that's the price of freedom.
It's the price of freedom.
It's giving up the comfort and having to put in some work, man. And dude, I'm
glad you say comfort because remember, I don't know if you heard this, but this always resonates. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you're too comfortable, and that ties into the whole going to VAS and all that,
dude. This
yeah.
conversation has been gold so far. We still have a lot ahead, but it's truly inspiring your mentality from what drove you to get into this path, the people in your life that helped elevate you. And the obstacles you overcame. Because, dude, that's no joke. You got freaking rocked 3 times and concussed, and you push through. Like, of course you're not going to pass your tests when you're like literally like no one would really but you still like sucked it up. You didn't play the victim and make excuses, and you just made it happen.
Yeah.
Shout out to my dad. He always says, make it happen.
Make it happen.
You know, so Dell, you started to tell us a little bit about how great the program is, and you said that you had certain metrics, like you got to hit 100 dials, you got to have 2 hours of talk time, and 6 meetings a week, and you just got to deliver. By the way, great insight for the folks out there interested in the program, The Reality.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little more about the program. What attracted you specifically to the Dell program? Like, how do they invest in you? Don't you get a lot of training?
Yeah, it's a ton of training. Chris Riley, right after I got the job, shout out to him again.
Yeah.
He always used to say it's like a graduate program, right? A lot of people go and get their master's, and they do 2 years of doing that, right? And that's great. Anybody that does a master's, kudos to you, because that's an entirely different beast. However, for myself, going through that inside program, I kind of viewed it as such, right? You do like 6 weeks of new hire, right? It's like, we always say this in tech, right? Drinking through the fire hose, right?
Yes.
And just knowledge being dumped into your head, exams every other day, right? And you're just learning the material. And they actually, when I was going through my new hire class, we were in and this is when EMC had just got acquired, like right after EMC got acquired. So this is like 2018. EMC got acquired like 2016, right? So things are still kind of like shifting, right? We're still using Boomi to move all moving all the integration between the two companies to have a better synergy, because they're two very separate organizations, right? Dell traditionally is still selling laptops and servers, whereas EMC has always been a big enterprise storage backup solution company, right? So combining the two to become a powerhouse was ultimately the goal that Michael Dell had, and shout out to him, because the man's incredible, and he's been able to stay relevant for the last 40 years. So his company is, you've seen their stock.
And he's an Austin-based guy.
Yeah, he's an Austin native. Yeah. And, you look at the stock, and I'm like, 2020, the stock was at $25, right? And now it's at $130, in the last 4 years. So it just shows the testament to the amount of work that they put in, and the growth that they've seen, and that's awesome. Now, remind me where we're at.
So we were talking about the Dell program, and quick call out. Dell EMC and Dell laptops are different. If you're in the interview process for Dell EMC, don't talk about laptops. I had a guy that I was working with that the first round was a video interview. Why do customers buy Dell EMC? And he talked about Dell laptops. They immediately ruled him out, because you got to know your audience and the product you're actually selling. And that's important for monster companies like Dell or my alma mater, Oracle, that have many products and business units. Just quick, public service announcement because people are going to see this, by the way, and I'm sure they're going to hit you up on LinkedIn. Guys, connect with Mikey on LinkedIn. I'm an incredible mentor and just inspiration. And they're probably going to be inspired, honestly, to apply to Dell, because I would too. So, okay.
No, for sure. So you go through that 6-week process, drink through the fire hose. We were in so the part I was getting to was, it was very unique for us, because we were in a room that was ducked off in like one of 10 offices out in Round Rock, and this room had no windows. So literally for 6 weeks, we were just taking the information, and it was tough, like staying up and taking all that. So hey, shout out to the coaches, the dev teachers, because man, it was brutal going through that process, but it made me want to learn even more, right? Because it was like, I gotta focus. I have to really understand this stuff. Excuse me. So I did the 6 weeks of going through new hire. Then they throw you onto the floor. Before they let you do BCIs, I don't know if you remember BCIs, but we used to do blind calendar invites.
Oh, yeah. So I hear my buddy Jay Johnson, shout out to Jay Johnson, who's been on the channel as well, ex-Dell prodigy like yourself. He was big on that. So it makes sense now.
Look, that
works.
Look,
walk us through the blind calendar
I hope I'm not giving away the sauce to everybody else.
You want to? Let's give away the sauce.
Well, I'm talking about the Dell EMC sauce. I hope I'm not giving it away.
Let's give it to the people.
The first part of you getting onto the floor, it's all, they don't let you do BCIs. They want you to prove that you're capable of doing cold calling and landing appointments prior to even getting that capability. So it's like unlocking a new stage.
Okay.
So the first couple of months, you're cold calling straight up.
Yep.
You can't use BCIs at all. So $100 a day, 2 hour talk time, 6 meetings, and 6 appointments a week. That's like the metric that you have to hit. So you do that for a couple of weeks, and then the top people, and I was top 3 with that first go around to get promoted, but They were like, we can only hire 2 at the time. So they hired 2 folks and they went up. And then the next quarter, I was like, okay, I'm gonna grind. I got the chance to do BCIs. BCIs is basically, looking at all your leads and then putting time on the calendar, and just it's literally blind calendar invites. And
they'll show up sometimes.
You'd be surprised. People show up. And then when people show up, it's like, my thing is, it's just like when they pick up the phone. If you're on the phone with them for more than 15 seconds, more than 10 seconds, 10 seconds is like average. If you're on the phone for more than 10 seconds, there's a reason why they're still talking to you, right? That's how I was wired. Like, as soon as everybody knew, when somebody picked up the phone and I start talking and people look around and be like, all right, Mikey's on the phone. Yeah, it's definitely going to be an appointment.
Let's go.
It was always off rip for me. So,
dude, you have such a vision. Like, you talk about this with deals. We got food, and you're like, this deal can't not happen. And we'll get to some of your monster deals in the future and what it takes to close monster deals. But you have that mentality, don't you? You're like, if I'm on the phone, I'm going to freaking set this meeting. If they give me the ball, they hand it off to me, I'm taking this to the end zone. Yeah, you have that mentality.
I'm glad you made that correlation because it's always like that. When I got the ball, it's like, I won't let one person take me down. Even if I don't score a touchdown, my goal was always never to let one person take me down. Wow. It was a rare occurrence when that happened. They used to call me the bull. It's called me the bullet. Look, when I need 2 or 3, 4 or 5 people on my back before I come down.
Dude, you would have truck sticked me, dude. I played football in like middle school, and there was a guy, Brandon Bollock. I don't know if you know him. Yeah. Dude, he was a beast as well, like yourself, and I'd try and tackle him. It was at Oklahoma's where you run after him. And dude, I freaking hung in there because like he'd like truck stick me, and I just like he'd drag me.
For the ride.
He'd drag me, dude. And that's what you would have done to me, man.
Hey, look.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
That's applicable to sales, right? Like, I was like, if you pick up the phone, I'm getting something out of it. We're both going to get something out of it.
We're both going to get something out of it. I love that.
If you're staying on the phone with me, that means there is a need. I just have to be able to ask the right questions. And the program teaches you the right way to qualify it out. We don't just jump in and get happy ears, right? Because that was always one of the biggest things that they like made sure to beat in our brains, never to get happy ears. Because there's always more that you could possibly get if you ask the right questions, right? Follow the methodology. So going through the inside program, that was the thing, right? Like and then you finally get the chance to do BCIs. BCIs, you're getting these guaranteed, they're like guaranteed. They're like, those are layups. You got to convert on those. So did well with that, went through the process, ended up getting promoted. But there was, before I get to the whole promotion part, this is where I
have a couple questions for you too, so go ahead.
Yeah, this is where, I brought up to you, I was like, I had on my desk because the very next time I was supposed to get promoted, they're like, well, you didn't meet with the managers. And I was like, damn, this is the second time I'm up for promotion. I didn't get it.
So you were number 3, and they were promoting the top 2.
That was the first time.
And then the second time
they're like, they promoted only 2 again. And I was the number 1 person, like from a numbers perspective, but I didn't meet with the leadership as much as I should have. I wasn't doing tech dev. I wasn't doing any dev.
And this was from SDR to AE for the audience sake, right?
Yeah,
okay,
correct.
So because a lot of the audience wants to know how to get from SDR to AE. So you're saying the relationships matter.
And these are 3 months promotion increments. Like every quarter, people get promoted. So I was like, dang, I'm the number 1 dude from a number perspective, but I wasn't doing any dev, right? So I really wasn't growing from learning the new technologies. I was just honing in on the fact that, hey, I'm going to get these meetings, I'm going to do my messaging, I'm going to get the cold calling. As long as I have the numbers, I'll get promoted. And that was like, that's 70% of the job, but there's that 30% where you have to meet with your leadership in order for you to learn what's new, learn different tactics and whatnot. So I was like, dang. So that's where I came up with the whole undeniable, because it's like, I'm the number 1 dude second quarter and third quarter. I'm like, third quarter, I got to be out of here. So I had on my desk, I put undeniable. I wanted it to be undeniably known on the floor that I'm the best person here. There's 200 people on this SDR floor. Every day I walk in, I got my, everybody, people that worked with me know I had my speakers on the desk, I had my music always up. What
were you playing?
I was playing everything.
Yeah.
I was trapping it out sometimes.
Yeah.
I was like, you can take me out of Florida, but you can't take the Florida out of me. You know what I mean?
Man.
I'm in there and I'm like,
Amen.
I'm getting hype. I'm getting hype every day. I'm like, all right, I'm going to make these cold calls. But I got so good and comfortable at this. And John Curtis was my manager at the time. And he's energy level, always at 1,000. Him and I were always on the same page. He actually made me every Monday or so, he would have me as the motivational speaker. Guy would come in, I'll hype everybody up. And it got to the point where by Wednesday, I would have my 6 appointments already done. You know what I mean? And then we would do competitions with somebody else on the team, didn't have their numbers up. And for the whole floor, Friday's coming around and it's Austin. You're trying to get out of office by 3.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, we need 2 or 3 extra more appointments. And everybody looked at me. You know, like, all right, I'm like, yo,
Dude,
I'm already
let's
up by 6.
go.
I'm chilling.
You were the
this
team
already.
motivational speaker. You were the go-to one that they get in the fourth quarter to hit the game-winning shot. You know, I took it from football to basketball metaphors. I was like in my head trying to track the metaphors. I'm sure you, dude, you were good at basketball.
My dad said they're giving me the ball at the 1.
Exactly. Didn't you, dude? My dad remembers you. He's like, Mikey was such a beast. And didn't you play basketball too?
I played basketball my freshman, sophomore year. Basketball wasn't my real song suit. I was just a defensive guy, right? I'm the running back. I was super jacked, you know, in high school. So it's like, I'm there. I'm not really there to shoot the ball, but I'm gonna be locked down on you. You know what I mean? But football was really my main sport. So I love football. Yeah.
You said you were going to be undeniable. You hit it. You're like, I'm putting my stake in the ground. I'm getting promoted from SDR to AE or whatever the title is at Dell. And so how did you become undeniable? One, it seems like you would hit your six meeting weekly metrics halfway through the week and then go above and beyond. But like, can we unpack some of the things you did to just be undeniably number one?
I was in office early. I was in office late. I wanted to make sure that there was nothing left for them to say that I didn't do well. You know what I mean? This word kind of always like stuck with me, like my verbiage, and we kind of talked about that. English is my third language, right?
Damn.
I grew up speaking Creole, although my family's been here for 30 years now. My parents do speak English now.
Yeah.
But growing up, man, from the time I was born at 0 to the time I was 5 years old, it was strictly Creole. That's all my mom knew how to speak. So Haitian Creole. So and it's so funny. I say this. You may or may not know, but some people may know. Like Esau, and every state has another way of saying it. But Esau is when you're a foreign kid and you come to this country.
Yes.
And you're in special classes. I'm an American-born citizen, and I'm in Esau class as
you were in special classes.
First grade, second grade, all the way to third grade. I was in special classes to learn English because I didn't know English, and I was born here. So it was always funny, like sitting in class with some of my counterparts, the Mexican kids, the Guatemalan kids, the Cuban kids, and all that, and they're like, "You're born here. Like, how do you not speak this language?" I'm like, "My parents don't speak it to me." So like, fast forward to going into tech and whatnot. I speak French, I speak Creole, I speak a little bit Spanish. English was kind of like something I had to learn, right? It's a necessity. But sometimes I verbiage things differently, or I message things differently, and there's a specific way that in sales, especially when you go through a program, they want to hear it in a specific way. Sometimes it seems a bit scripted, and I was always off the script in a way. And I used to be told I had to work on my verbiage, so worked on my verbiage, honing on the craft. And some cases you could say is code switching in a bit, right? Because how I speak to you offline versus how I speak to you online is two different types of speaking. So I focused on that, and that's really helped me. That really helped with the whole undeniable part. Obviously, meeting with the managers, make sure that I had time with them one-on-one. They could hear me messaging. They could hear me progressing and learning more about the products and et cetera. And that really helped me move into that next role. And that AM role, right, when I moved from SDR to ISR, ISR is synonymous to account manager role.
Inside sales rep,
Inside
right?
sales rep, but it also can be on title-wise, account manager, right?
Yes.
You're supporting a field AE. My field AE, now he's one of my best friends. He's a big brother to me. I talk to him almost every week. Shout out to Kenneth Lee. That's my guy out of the Bay Area.
Kenneth.
You know what I mean? He's look. My
Dude,
favorite,
I love that you give credit to all the key people, man.
Yeah.
It's a testament to your humility and that you get that you appreciate the impact others have made in your life.
100%, man. Kenneth Lee, man, he was a G, straight up G. Took me under his wing. He's a guy that built himself up, right? Didn't go to college, was able to make his way, cut his teeth into working at retail stores, and then ended up working at Verizon, or worked at Verizon, then worked at VMware, and worked his way up. He built himself up. To get into tech, typically in today's world, you have to have a degree, right? And that's it doesn't matter what your degree is actually in. They just want to know that you got a degree, and they want to know that you're able to finish something. So I want to make sure.
That's a good point.
A disclaimer.
And I've seen people that, didn't go to college, they get into tech sales and do great, right?
Right,
so for those out there, don't be discouraged. But to your point, it shows you completed a big endeavor. It takes something. You don't have to have the fanciest degree, but you completed something. Great point.
So I always, because people, I'm like, yo, I want to help you out, but unless you have experience or somebody gave you a shot out of the dark, somewhere.
A foot in the door.
Yeah.
That's key too. That helps.
Without a degree, then you could probably get a job with a big tech company. But for the most part, in today's world, it's very difficult to get it without a degree. So I say that to say like, just grind through it, whatever. There's ways you can figure around it. But I make it to the ISR role. In the ISR role, I'm learning from Ken. We had 3 accounts at the time. I can't necessarily name the companies, but I can say this. One was the second largest pharmaceutical company in the world, right? The other one was the number 8 pharmaceutical company in the world, right?
Wow.
Out of the Bay Area. So y'all do your research. You
Yeah, I mean, at least you showed the scope of how big these were the biggest organizations in the world in their space.
You know, we got a pretty sizable quota that we have to go chase after. And then one of the other accounts was a semiconductor company out of Austin. That's another one. You know, big company. You know,
one of the biggest in the industry.
Yeah, one of the biggest in the industry.
You were in the enterprise space.
Always.
You got right into the enterprise, man.
Yeah.
And that's where the big bucks are made. And we'll talk a little bit about what's possible.
Like, not saying that you can't make money in commercial or SMB. You can. You typically have lower quotas. It's just you have to like, either you do the shotgun approach where you spray and you try to hit everything, or you narrow down to a handful of accounts and you know that you can make your number off. So that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But specifically around my experience was enterprise. And he was in the first couple of months, you know, he was filling me out. He was kind of seeing, you know, like, how will I operate? Am I just going to be someone that's going to take orders from him and like process orders and, you know, do quotes and, you know, build configurations and kind of let him do his thing? Or was I going to be someone that's going to go and take on and go and be a headhunter, right? I'm a headhunter. I want to go earn my keep, right? So what made it very unique is, like, as an inside rep, if you did like $400 to $500K and you contribute that to your team in a fiscal year, that was like a big deal.
You closed 400 to 500K.
Like individually, like individual contribution, you close that. And the thing is, as an insider rep at Dell, they switch your comp plan. So as an associate, you're like full salary at the time. Then when you switch over to an account manager, it's like a 60-40 split or a 70-30 split. You get a little bump in your increase, but your base goes down a bit so you can make commission. But that's not the point of the inside program. It's not about making money. I want to point that out because I still talk to a lot of folks that still work on the inside and they get discouraged. Like, I'm not making enough money. I'm like, yo, you're in graduate school. You're making $90K. You're getting paid to learn. Like, take the time and enjoy that. It's only 2 years. Like, this is just the beginning of, and I want to actually like reiterate that because a ton of folks,
dude, this is lighting me up.
This
is such wisdom on playing the long game and understanding you are getting paid for an education. So say it again.
You're getting paid to learn.
Paid well. Imagine you pay for a top university $60,000 like Ivy League or something. You can get paid $90,000 to get an education that actually, like a real world business education, better than a top university.
Dude, it's
invaluable.
And a lot of people, they're like, man, I'm like, you've only been in this off for a year and you're complaining about making 70K, 80K, whatever. I'm like, you're tripping. You play the long game. It gets better. And that's what I always tell, like, people that I mentored, I'm like, yo, it gets better. Trust me. And I'll walk through that. But so
coming from a guy getting ready to retire before 30, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, it gets better. So, you know, I go through that. I'm learning from Ken, and you know, he's like, I get to the point where he trusts me. He's like, you know what? You have free reign. Some of the accounts those 3 accounts that we had, they had subsidiaries. He's like, go ahead and go cut your teeth on some of these subsidiaries. See what you can do. I was like, all right, cool, bet, got you. I'm talking about every day. I'm in the office early again. I'm there late at night. I'm there till 6:30. You know what I mean? Like, it was always me and like maybe 2 other people that were in the office till late at night. And I'm calling. I'm building out maps. I'm building out, you know, strategies on how do I get into the accounts. I was able to cut my teeth into an account that had ruled out Dell for like, they had Dell in the beginning, or Dell EMC at the time, but now we're talking about, they had EMC at the time, and they completely ripped it out. Wanted nothing to do with it for like 7 years. And I finally got into contact with him, a guy that was there, Kieran, and him and I built a really good relationship. I stayed persistent. Like, I was always reaching out to him, always calling him, always like getting tidbits and would remember little things about him to build a relationship with him. And ultimately, you know, there was an opportunity to repatriate, come back from the cloud, right? Sorry, I know you're a cloud guy, but...
Yeah. Okay, I have a bunch of questions for you as you speak.
Go ahead.
But one is, what's repatriating? Because you might have to set a scene for the audience of like on-premise versus cloud and what that means.
Yeah, so 2015 to 2018, everybody, I mean, you made a ton of money during that time period. Every big company for the most part, any small company, any company really was like, man, we got to go to the cloud. Like, let's cut our losses with the data center. Let's fire some of the people that we had to pay on the payroll to maintain and run our infrastructure on-prem in data centers. Let's do away with that. Let's get away from the data center business. That was everybody's kind of like
get out of
process.
the data center business.
That was a big push back in 2015 to 2018. So everybody was trying to get out of the data centers. And then there came to a point where now everybody's in the cloud, and they're starting to realize, okay, like, in the beginning it was cheap, and now it's getting very expensive.
It is expensive.
It gets very expensive. As your data grows and you start using other tools, your monthly bill may have been $20,000, now it's $40,000, right?
Yeah.
Now it's $60,000, now it's $80,000. Now you're building applications in the cloud, which makes it native to the cloud. So now you're paying for the premium of that, and it grows on that monthly expense.
Yeah, and by the way, because the cloud's really about business agility,
Yes.
like get to market faster, but it's not about like long-term being cheaper. It's only, the cost is only going to grow. And when you're a seller at AWS, you have, let's say you have like you're a AE with like 250 OTE or something like that. You just have to talk to your customers and say, try these new services, and the spend just grows.
Right.
That's an interesting insight about selling in the cloud that
It's
just
different.
for the audience, it's like, it grows.
So the whole like going to the cloud, getting away from data center business, everybody did that 2015, 2018. And it came to the point where 2019 really, and that's when I was cutting my teeth, there was a push for people to try to get back on-prem, because going on-prem, it's like I could sell you this entire infrastructure for $1 million, or you can go pay $3 million for a year, right? You look at it, the TCO from 5 years perspective, right? Or a 3-year perspective, $9 million versus $1 million, you do the math, that makes a lot more sense. So in this case, with this company, I broke my teeth into them, and I started running the deal. And this is completely like, Ken has nothing to do with this. And I'm like, yo,
it's all you.
I got $1.5 million deal for you. And this is just the first iteration that I'm working on with this customer. And this is net new to him. Mind you, think about it like this. You're a field rep. I'm a field rep now. Like, you have an inside rep that brings you an extra $1 million to your quota. That's a big deal.
You never expect it.
They may not make that much money on it as an inside rep, but for you, if you have a $5 million quota, that's a 50-year quota already. That's a good chunk of change.
Yes.
So he was like, okay, I'm gonna invest more time in you. So he spent a ton of time with me. Ended up building that proposal, getting that deal. We closed it at I think it ended up being like $980,000, right? And mind you, I told you the average for an inside rep is $400,000 to $500,000 for the year. I had just closed one deal, almost $1 million.
You basically doubled your quota.
Right.
And by the way, quick insight is you brought value to your field
AE.
sellers. In a way, you helped him make more money to support his family. Like, in tech sales and in life, it's like, how can we contribute to others? And in sales in particular, as an SDR, you can set really good qualified meetings that lead to closed revenue for your AEs, and you can help them get paid, which could impact at least their quality of life and even their family. So it's like, I just want to double click on the fact that you made such an impact, and the guy, I'm sure to this day, just freaking loves you for it.
Yeah. Him,
so
like
it's
I said,
like,
him and I talk all the time still.
Talk about the ultimate way to build a relationship.
Absolutely.
So anyways, back to you.
So take it a step further. Like, another big project comes along the way, and this is I'm just banging
From the
lines.
same customer, if you found a new one.
So this is one of the subsidiaries, right? This is a subsidiary of that big company, and then now the big company has an opportunity for a refresh, and it's a massive refresh. It's $3.8 million. And I'm like, oh.
Okay, your deal sizes are getting bigger.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's nothing compared to the deals you're chasing today.
Yeah.
Teaser for the
That's
audience. But
different.
anyways,
5 years,
go ahead.
Yeah.
But we'll talk more. And by the way, I realize we're... we got time. Okay, cool. We're gonna go over. Let's keep it rolling. Dude, this is just too good. But I'm gonna have you on again for future conversations, because we could pack like so many.
There's a lot. There's a lot. Yeah. So fast forwarding, we're working through this deal. I end up building out this proposal. I'm like in depth. I'm like all the reasons why, business value to the customer, TCO, ROI, all that good stuff.
We got to double click on that, man, because for the folks out there, so business value, TCO, ROI, just for dummies, So it's like, let's talk about each one of those real quick. So in a
proposal, right, you typically start off with an executive summary, right? Hey, here's what you guys have been doing. Here's what you're ultimately trying to get to. Here's why our company can align and be a partner to those goals that you have set forth, right? So that's the first part of it.
That's business value.
Yeah, providing the business value. Why us, right? And then the second part of it is the TCO, right? All at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much somebody likes you, the technology has to work and it has to be justifiable, right?
From a cost
From a
perspective.
cost perspective. Financials are always a big point. That's for everybody.
Yeah.
So in that case, working on a total cost of ownership, right? Like we're going back to the cloud versus on-prem, right? $9 million versus $1 million, right? Total cost of ownership in the cloud may be $9 million, but on-prem it's $1 million. You save $8 million. Total cost of ownership is a lot less, right? And that ties into the whole return on investment, right? Now that you have $8 million exposed or
Freed
available
up.
to, right?
Over a certain number of years, because
Right.
you say total cost of ownership, so it's over a certain year period.
Right. How can you use that money to put back into the business to be more profitable?
Oh,
right?
that's taking it another step.
Yeah.
And that requires a very open communication with the customer to help you understand that.
And now in my current position, that plays a bigger role today, right? Like, because a lot of these companies that we're working with, they're in stock, right? Like there's a APS, like earnings per share means a ton to them.
These are public, monstrous companies, the biggest in the world, that care about earnings per share.
The more money that you can save, the higher your stock is, the better it is for your employees and your
investor or
your
stakeholders,
investors, right? Whoever you have a fiduciary, agreement with, right? Which is your investors, and that plays a huge role. A lot of my conversations on how can I save you more money, which in turn you can use to put back into the business, which can help you guys be more profitable, right? So yeah, you wanted to double click on that.
Yeah, and so now going back, you had you had the business value, the TCO, and the ROI presented. I think we're back to the deal.
Yeah,
if I remember.
So we ended up closing $3.8 million deal, huge deal. So now at this point, I'm at $4.8 million as an inside rep.
4.8 versus a 500K.
Yeah,
like
one more deal comes on the board. This is a way for us to do an ELA. I'm like, all right, cool.
ELA stands for what?
Enterprise Licensing Agreement, right? This is basically. If you ever get in a position to do an ELA or a TLA, right, transactional licensing agreement, those are always golden because you're locking in the customer for a certain period of time. Yes, you're giving a bigger discount up front, but long-term wise, you're closing that deal now.
Dude.
You're getting paid on it now.
And we're talking like at Oracle, we have the same type of thing. Microsoft, these big companies have these ELA type, and they might have a different like term for it. Like I've heard the term EULA. Unlimited licensing agreement was at Oracle. And again, I haven't been there for a bit. So great point and call out of like the types of deals you might work on. So
we ended up closing another deal for like another $4 or $5 million. Right. So
dude,
I'm way over. So like so that's why I say
you destroyed it.
We crushed it that year. So typically in like the Dell EMC program, you get promoted after 6 quarters. After having that monstrous year, within my 3rd quarter, they're already making a patch for me. I was there.
You were creating a territory that was for you.
For me to go take. So like, I actually got promoted after 4 quarters, which is like, that's 6 months
versus
earlier.
6. Wait.
And there's only like I literally mean there's only a handful of people that were able to achieve that. And they don't do that anymore. But I was like one of the last people that, because my numbers spoke for themselves. They made the patch. That's when I ended up taking the AE role out in the Bay Area. Shout out to James Thomas and Carlos
Bay
Perez.
Area.
Yeah, so I moved out to the Bay. So
dude,
after having that monstrous year
Valley.
as an account manager, I got the opportunity to be an account executive, right? And that's when I focused on block storage. Block storage there's different protocols on how data is ingested, right? There's file, which is like audio and pictures and all that stuff. And then there's block storage, which is normally databases, etc. And at that specific time in my career, I was focused more so on the block side of house, hyper-converged and converged solutions. So I did that. Carlos Perez, James Thomas were my managers. They were my dudes. Like those 2 guys will be at my wedding. They're my guys.
I love that you give credit generously to all the people. And clearly you love people.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you're a connector. Like this is amazing. You've given so many great shout outs, dude. I hope they all see this.
No. They those are my boys.
Let's go.
I'm going we got trips lined up.
Let's go. I want to be added to the trip.
Yeah. Those guys are my brothers.
You go back
man.
to those guys though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So when I moved out to the field, another case where building relationships. I had I want to say I had 15 accounts, and they were all some of the biggest accounts that you can think of.
The brands that everyone out there would know.
Yeah. Like, so cool to say, like, I sold the first storage array to Zoom.
to Zoom.
Yeah, back when they were blowing up.
In
during
the pandemic?
Yeah. So
Imagine selling a Zoom in the pandemic.
yeah. Clutch.
Wow.
It ended up giving me the MVP for my first year for our district.
MVP.
Yeah. Like, so it was really cool. You know, I blew out my number that year, did 300%. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, and mind you, from a numbers perspective,
dude,
I know we got to talk about the numbers.
Okay, we got to talk. People want to know, how much are you making, dude?
All right, so
like,
that year as an account manager, I think my OT probably was like 79K or whatever. I ended up making like 140.
Dude,
right?
140 versus 79K.
I like 22, 23 years old, right?
20, yeah.
Yeah. So like, obviously you do 300-400% of your number, you're going to get paid.
Yeah,
nice
you got to.
I was like, sick.
Now, you would have gotten paid more if you're field.
Oh, yeah.
But like
sure.
you all were laying the groundwork, man. So, yeah.
Trust the process. And then I got out to the field, and OT at the time for the Bay was like 160K.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, cool. I'm the youngest person that they hired out to the field at the time. I'm like 24.
24.
Yeah, I'm 24, 160K OT, living in the Bay. I had the spot, like, dumb, dude. I had a 2-story loft, like, in the dog patch, which is, like, right on the same street as the Chase Stadium. Like $5,000 a month. Dumb decision. But I'm like, yo, I'm making a lot of money. Why not?
$5,000 a month,
I'm gonna be honest with you guys.
balled out.
Yeah, no. Granted,
I mean, it's fun to ball out, dude.
Cool.
It's fun to ball out.
I was like, let me get a roommate to split this. I'll pay $2,500.
Okay,
but it was a really dope spot.
Okay, that's smart. See, $2,500 is, I mean, that's still expensive. But
listen, it gets better because this is during the pandemic, and my roommate at the time, he had a family in Florida, so he was gone the entire time.
Oh my gosh.
That I was there. So
and he was paying for it.
And he's still paying for his side. I'm paying for my side. So I'm living in this place on myself. It's right on the water. It's beautiful. So I had a great time. Fast forward, and that year is 160K OTE. I ended up crushing my number, did 200-300% of my number. Ended up making like 210 that year.
210. You break the 200K mark. I mean, that's amazing.
By the time before I was 25, so like I was like, okay, there's some money to be made. Right? Like I said, trust the process. Literally went from 70K and doubled it, went to 160. And my thing is, whenever I get promoted, as long as I have the metric to show behind it, I always ask for a 30% increase. That's just my thing.
Yeah.
But if you're hitting your number,
the metrics to show.
If you're hitting your numbers, yeah, there's 30. Like I want the 30K. There's 30% increase, not 30K, 30% increase. So like
30% increase
on my
of
OT.
your on-target earnings, which includes base plus what you would make in commission.
Correct.
That's a great lesson, guys. So keep that in your pocket. 30% increase.
Yeah.
Now you have to back it up with the numbers. You got to
back it up with the numbers.
You got to exceed your numbers.
Yeah. So I did that. The following year, went back, crushed it, did some more deals. OTs are higher, so I'm pushing. By the time I left that role, and I did that role for 2 years, I was like around, I did like 260, 275. So I ended up, pandemic happens, I'm crushing my number during that time period. I'm like, man, I don't like California. California's beautiful, so don't get on my back for it. But I'm like, yeah, this is not for me.
I tried LA and I came back.
I like the South, man. I'm a Florida, Texas guy. Those are the only two places I live in America. So I was like, send me back to Austin. I'm like, cool. Got a core account executive role where I was in charge of the entire portfolio. I had one of the largest, there's two airlines out of Dallas. I had one of them.
Wow, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then I had another semiconductor company out of Dallas. They used to make calculators. People were known for it. Those are like my two main accounts that I covered during that time period and worked on some really cool deals. My quota, dang. Now that I'm responsible for the entire portfolio, what I mean by that is now I have a team that specifically focuses on, and I'm 26 at this point. It's like 25, 26 at this point. I have an entire team that's focused on computers and peripherals and all that stuff. I have a server team. I have a backup team. I have a file team. I have a block team. I have a converge team that I'm ultimately responsible for the entire portfolio of Dell Technologies to sell into these accounts.
You're like a super seller that has a team of other specialized sellers for different product lines that you quarterback and orchestrate.
And that's exactly that's what we
You are responsible for the ultimate outcomes in the account.
Exactly.
But
exactly. I'm responsible for the relationship. I'm responsible for growing the business, etc. And at the time, my quota was like $40, $50, $60 million, right? Depending on the year it was. Ran that, did well in that, crushed my number again. And then the following year was really where I was like, that year is my best year, right? Like I ended up doing like 350K.
350K.
370. I'm like 26 years old.
At 26 years old, 350K.
And so I'm like, yo, this is too much money.
Come on, dude.
I'm like, this is too much money to be just like, so I bought 2 houses. I bought a house here in Austin. A brand new build townhome. over here on the east side. And then I bought another home, and I was like, I want to get into real estate investing. You know, we'll talk about this the next time I get on this with you. But
yeah, we might finish up with some like inspiration on other things at the end of this conversation. We'll touch on it because it sounds like you've leveraged. It's like, how can you leverage the wealth you're building to create more wealth and freedom for yourself? And it sounds like real estate is something.
Real estate's, I mean, number one growing. Like, it's always been the number one industry that creates the most millionaires, right? That's real estate.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, tech might be fighting for number one now because
I think of Grant Cardone.
Yeah. Hey,
I tried to have him on the channel, by the way.
10X.
Yeah. We'll get him eventually. 10X.
For sure.
Okay, so you hit 370K at, was it again 26?
26.
26. And then, what was next in your Dell journey? And then we'll finish up by talking about your new opportunity at Vast, which is freaking exciting.
Yeah, of course.
So walk us through the rest of the Dell journey.
So end up doing that, crushed it at Dell. And, I get to the point where I'm like, all right, I made 307K. They're not going to let me make more money. I'm about to, the next year I was looking at my quote. I was like, it's pushing, 80 million. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hit this number.
Okay, so the quota keeps getting elevated. That's how you get rewarded for doing well.
Quota always, and that's fair. Understand. And that wasn't the reason why I left. The reason why I left, it was like, I got to the point where I felt like I was very complacent, and it was a personal thing for me. I was like, man, I don't feel like I'm challenging myself enough. And like, I tried before I even made the decision to leave, I tried a couple of things for 6 months. I was like, all right, how do I get that juice, the happiness of like chasing after the stuff? And I was like, I need to find a new opportunity. I need to throw myself into a position where I'm extremely uncomfortable. And at the time, going back to Ken Lee was like, Mikey, I'm too old to go leave Dell. I have everything kind of like figured out. I have everything kind of working the way I needed to work. He had just had a son, so he's like, yeah, I can't leave. But he's like, you on the other hand, he's like, young man, you are young, you're gonna crush it. He's like, you should leave and you should go look at this company called Vast. So he's actually the one that put me on to Vast. And he was like, this company is where I would go if I was you. They are crushing it. They are revolutionizing the way that people see data and use data. You should take a look. And it just happened to be that my old VP that I had worked for previous years had just went over to Vast. So I was like, cool. And they needed to build out Austin. I reached out to him. I reached out to the recruiter before I even reached out to him. I was like, let me go and get this on my own merit, and then it'd be cool to loop back in with him afterwards. Okay. So ended up reaching out to the recruiter. I was like, hey, like extremely interested. And he looked at my profile. He's like, yeah, we definitely are interested in you too. He was like, can I call you now? And literally,
it's nice when that happens.
Yeah, he was like, Joseph, super cool dude, man. He was like you don't even got to sell me on Vast. I did my research. I'm interested. And we both had mutual interest. Dude. He hooked me up with the manager for the area. Went through the interviewing process. Like, yeah, we definitely want you. And so the reason why I made the switch to Vast Data is because I looked at the industry. Dell has always owned the industry from an enterprise perspective, have crushed it. Phenomenal product. It works. It does what it needs to do for its customers. But also, we're moving to a new world, right? AI is everything. Everything that we do is all automated. There's data that's been sitting out there for a significant amount of time that hasn't been utilized. Like, you'd be surprised. There's a ton of businesses that just have petabytes of data just sitting out there that they're not using or analyzing or better understanding, right? And Vast fills in the role of both sides of the house, right? It's still the traditional, like still has the offerings of like traditional storage, but also you take it a step further, you think about like the Snowflakes, the Databricks, being able to be that layer of analytics that reads that data and uses that data where it gives you better insights. And remember, going back to like cost, money. If you have all this data that's sitting out there and you can better understand it and utilize it, it gives you better outputs and you can understand your business a little bit more. You can change things, you can tweak things. Ultimately ends up being a benefit to your business, increases your profit margin, right? So
well put on the importance how data plays into helping companies increase their profit margin and ultimately grow and operate more efficiently.
Exactly. So I looked at it, I was like, yeah, this is
data's the new oil, Mark Cuban says. Which is funny because like you kind of remind me of like a Mark Cuban like just beast mentality. Like you have such a vision, dude, and like you're just like undeniable. So it's like you actually, I think of like, when I had like when we caught up and ate food, I literally thought of like Mark Cuban and other like moguls like that.
Yeah, and I had a mentor, Tom Cortella. Shout out to Tom Cortella. He's known me since I was a freshman in high school. He was one of those guys that was in IT like, back in the 70s, the 80s, had his own company, like blew that thing up, sold it, made a ton of money. And he took me under his wing and taught me a whole lot of things. I didn't get a chance to really talk about how he impacted my life, but somebody I talk to on a weekly basis to this day. You know what I mean? Like when I say he's one of the godfathers in the IT space, crushed it. But just like Mark Cuban, right? He was one of those guys that had a vision, didn't have to reinvent the wheel, but was able to see what was going on and be at the forefront of it. So VAST, I look at it as that same position. We're tied to the hip with NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the hottest company that's out there. There's nobody that can touch what they're doing today, and we're their number one, selection
Unreal.
for storage. So it's very unique in the sense of we're tied to NVIDIA. We're changing the way that people have traditionally seen the data center, right? We call it our own architecture, right? It's called DAYS, right? For people that don't know what this is, I'll give a quick rundown. For a long time, the Googles, the Dell, the NetApps, and all the other traditional tech companies have always had it's called you think of it, it's a disaggregated. We call it DAYS because it's disaggregated shared everything approach, whereas everybody does a disaggregated shared nothing approach, which means, and I don't want to get too technical, but
but let's go a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
From a disaggregated shared nothing approach, it means that there's multiple different tiers for your data, right? Some people have archive data, some people have hot data, some people have crucial data. All data is being viewed in a different tier, whereas there's different products that are aligned to those different tiers. With VAST, that's not the case. We take that out of the window. It doesn't matter what type of data you have it accessible to you on one platform, right?
And why does that matter? Does it lead to quicker decisions?
Quicker decisions.
And is it more cost effective?
Cost effective. All different organizations are able to leverage all the data, right? It's flexibility, right? It changes the way that people are viewed and have been able to access data, right? It removes them from having to physically manage it and have to have multiple points of management to one point of management, right? Time, right? Time is something that you can't get back. We give people time to not worry about managing the data, but spend time on analyzing the data, understanding the data, which ultimately helps them make more money. So that's what it comes down to. How can you help your customers make more money, be more profitable? Or if it's a company that's making changes, which we work with a lot of the big hospitals, the big research institutes, how can they remove themselves from spending time on physically managing the data to understanding the data, analyzing the data, being able to have better outputs for their customers or their research, or whatever the case may be.
So are you 28 years old?
28 now.
Okay, and at this company, VAST, you have such big deals in front of you that you have the opportunity to retire by 30, which is the division you set for yourself. So just give us a sense of the scope of how big these deals can get. And then I want to finish up talking about some of your pro tips and your hard-earned lessons learned through real-world experience and what it takes to close monster deals, the reality of that. So let's start with, how big are these deals? How big can they get that you're chasing?
So 7 years ago, when I started this journey, a petabyte was a big deal, right? You make a petabyte, you're definitely hitting your number. Now, some of the deals that I talk about now, you're talking about an exabyte of data. And some of these customers have exabyte of data, whether or not it's in the cloud or it's on-prem, they have exabytes of data. Exabyte's a big deal. I'm gonna put it in perspective. You think about our phones, they have 256 gigabytes, 512 gigabytes, right? And some of us load them up with just pictures, right? And then you think of companies that have massive amount of data, you get to a terabyte, and a terabyte, or let's say, I'm just climbing the ladder, right? Gigabytes to terabytes to petabytes to exabytes. It's a lot of data, right? Those were $1 million. When I was closing that deal, that first deal I did for that $1 million, the first one, that was for 2 petabytes.
2 petabytes is $1 million.
Yeah.
Now exabytes.
Exabyte, we're talking about 100 million.
You're chasing $100 million plus deals, essentially.
Yeah, you're talking about
talk about the commission you can make and aren't you in you're basically a founding sales leader for a certain region, Texas based,
so
basically?
My title is a regional sales director for the central part of Texas, right? So I'm responsible for all of Austin and San Antonio and any of the neighboring cities that have enterprise companies. VAST is cutting his teeth in this area. I'm the person that's responsible for it, me and my SC. And it's just day in and day out. The last 3 days I'm sending 100 emails. I'm back to my cold calling days because I have to build this out by myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sending 100 emails out every day, getting people to bite. But there are opportunities that are on the table that are significant to the point where I can make double digits millions this year if I do the right things, right?
Wow.
So,
Double-digit millions in 1 year.
Yeah.
Oof. So, all right. I just wanted to peel back a few things to wrap up on like what you're doing today in your role and like what it takes to succeed at your level. So, and you are still prospecting. It's just a testament of the fact that the most elite sellers never get away from prospecting. So you're sending emails, but when you cold call, like how do you approach it? Like I'm putting you on the spot, but like I feel like you probably just use your own authentic personality and confidence. Yeah. But how do you like kick it off?
That's a tough question just because I don't go based off a script. Everybody that I speak to, they have a different title. If you're talking to a CIO, you talk to them differently. Talking to a CTO, you speak to them differently. Talking to a VP or IT director, you're talking to them differently than you were to a system admin. So whenever I pick up the call, I make sure that I understand who my audience is. Secondly, I do my research on their time at that company, what they've done, as much as I can possibly get.
Yes.
And then I use that and I tie it back to their 10K, right? 10K is one of those things where, as a sales rep, is one of the first things that they tell you to always go through. Right? Read about their initiatives. These companies actually tell you what their initiatives are.
Their annual report. They have to report on their business objectives, their risk factors.
Exactly. So you can align that to your calls. Hey, Mr. Customer, my name is Mike Plancher, calling from Fast Data, fastest growing tech company for, AI needs. Wanted to notice that you guys are looking at,
I like that flex. But it's like that you're fortunate that you're at an amazing company where you can.
No, definitely.
And you said you said it calmly, by the way. So keep going. I just had to acknowledge I love the approach.
I always like to throw in the AI part of it because that's a buzzword.
Everyone loves AI.
Right? And it's like, we're tied to the hip with NVIDIA. Wanted to better understand. Saw that you guys were looking at doing some initiatives around X, Y, and Z. Wanted to see if there's a way for us to partner, if we could, potentially be somebody that could help your organization move forward or, get towards your goal.
I love that, dude. That was so smooth. And you're so like calm in your tone, and you threw in the tide at the hip with the NVIDIA. So you put some nice little flexes that are immediate proof points to show them
value points.
Oh, these guys are the real deal. And we're fortunate to be able to do that at a company where you do have those partnerships and then name recognition. You can do it at a Dell and Oracle. Now, if you're at a small startup that no one knows, like that's tough, but love how you wove that in.
Yeah, so those would be some of the things that I do. And I tie it back to, their objectives, right? What I read, what I understand, where they ultimately want to get. And then from there, it's like, hey, look, like, I don't know if, we're the right fit for you guys, but I do know that there's a lot of customers that are working with us today. These are some of the customers that we have that we've already worked with, and we've helped them solve a lot of their challenges and meet their goals. Would love to see if that makes sense for you guys too. You know what I mean? Let's get on a deep dive call with my engineer involved, and we can see if there's an alignment that could be made here, right? And then go from there. Like, at the end of the day, what I notice is that there is always a need, right? People are always trying to, for the most part, people are always trying to be more efficient. They're trying to do things better, especially when you're in tech, right? Like, you can't stay stale because the industry doesn't stay still. It's always growing. It's always changing. So you have to change with it. It's like it goes with the whole, like, taxis versus Uber, right? The transformation part of it. Either you adapt or you'll be left behind. So whenever
how about
you can
Blockbuster?
say, Netflix and all that. So all of that's still all relevant and still things that we bring up, right? Like, hey, I'm telling you that I know a lot of other companies are doing X, Y, and Z, and they're doing it for this reason. I think it may be applicable to you, right? And if you don't make that change, you may not make that change today, but you'll be calling me in a few weeks. And it always happens.
So this year you're going to make that retirement money. Okay, you're going to present the business value, the TCO, and the ROI. You're going to get there with these companies you're pursuing. It might be a few. Final thing for today is, how do you get there? Right, there must be so much trust and relationship building that is needed to get to that point where you're at the final stages. So let's talk a little bit about that, because when we were at dinner and you showed me your phone, you're texting the customer about showing puppy pictures. So it's like, let's share with the audience, what does it take to get to the final stages of monster deals?
So I'll take it. I can leave it off with this because it's a good way to tie it all in, right? We mentioned Chris Riley's name a few times. There's one thing that he taught me. This is the biggest pro tip, and it's Perfect segue to the end
Let's
of it,
go.
right? It's simple. Know me, like me, trust me, buy from me.
Say
if
it
you know
again.
me, then you understand my objectives. You understand where I'm coming from. If you like me because you understand, because you know me, right? Then there's a level of trust that comes with it, right? And then ultimately that leads to you buying from me. If you understand that I genuinely want to help you, I want to help you solve a challenge or a problem, then it makes it easier for you to trust me because you know I have the best interest in mind for you. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, tech is tech, and there's a ton of people slinging it. So it's like, if I can achieve those first three things, then the buying part becomes very easy. It's a no-brainer.
Say it one more time for the audience. Know me, take it
Like
away.
me, trust me, buy from me.
Okay. And to get to that point where they know you, trust you, they like you, and they buy from you.
In order to like me, you must know me, right?
Yep.
In order to like me, you must know me, right? In order for you to trust me, you must like me. In order for you to buy from me, you must trust me.
So how frequently are you meeting with these customers over a course of how long to get to that point?
Yeah. I think it all depends. It's just like dating in a way, right? Some people you meet, you can build a relationship and it just sparks instantly. And then there's other people where it takes a little bit more time. And we don't chase, but it takes a little more time of courting, right? Of understanding, of being respectful of their time and your time, etc. And over time, if you are there to actually make a difference in their lives, then that ultimately correlates to what it ultimately can be an opportunity for you.
So tell us your vision, going forward. We talk about retiring at 30, but I know you're the type of guy who's never going to be done making an impact, creating new opportunities for yourself and for others. So what's the vision look like?
Yeah, I mean, right now, up until this point, everything that I said I wanted to do by this point, I've done it. So, except for the whole retirement part, I'm working on that, right? And I still got time to achieve that goal. Looking to the future, I'm loving where I'm at with Vast. I want to continue to grow this patch, this district. I think it'll be very unique where we are in the next 4 years because of the amount of growth that I see in our specific space. So being a part of that is like my immediate goal and my biggest focus. Like I'm a single dude. I don't really focus on anything else right now other than building out this business because it's challenging me. It's making me think in different ways. It's ultimately going to open up a lot of doors and expose me to different ideas and different way of, progressing personally. So for the immediate, I keep it short, man. Like, just more so focused on building this business, right, for this company. And then when we go IPO, it's up from there.
Oof. And by focusing on what's in front of you and crushing it, there's just an unpredictable ripple effect that will happen in your life from there.
Absolutely.
So let's imagine we're on the sales floor at Dell and we're bringing in you in to give the motivational talk to the team, right? Leave this audience who it really is, for the most part, not everyone, but like 20 to 30 something plus, trying to break into tech sales, their current SDRs, maybe their inside AEs trying to get to the next level. So this conversation has served them. So give us a final, pep talk like you would on the Dell sales floor.
Yeah, look, there isn't, going back to the whole corny thing, right? There's no point of reinventing the wheel. I mentioned my mentor, and we didn't get a chance to really talk about him much, but Tom Curtella, built his own business. Like he didn't build his own business. He actually worked for the business, was able to learn it and understand it, and ultimately buy out the people that owned the business, right? So it kind of goes the same way from a sales perspective on how you should think about things. Trust the process, right? There is specific ways that things are done. And like, not saying that you can't, like, the biggest point is not reinventing the wheel. There is ways that are already set in place on how you build relationships. There's ways on how you qualify. There's ways that how you verbiage certain things that can help people, that can help you get more information out of people. And there's people that are there at these organizations that will teach you how to do that. Trust it, right? Don't get discouraged when you don't hit your number. Don't get discouraged when, you're being faced with a challenge, right? Working on a big deal and it falls through. That stuff happens. It happens to all of us, right? But if you dwell on the past and it's funny, and you're gonna love this because Matterson, one of our joint buddies, sent me a text the other day, and he's like, the rear view mirror was a lot smaller than the windshield, right? So as you progress through your career, stop focusing on what's been in the past. Like those great years that I had, I don't think about that stuff at all. I don't lose no sleep over it. I'm like, yo, like that was great. I did good that year. My OT or what I'm set to make on my W-2 is not the same as it was the year before. And that's really I'm a Capricorn. I'm on the zodiac sign. I'm sorry, guys. I'm Capricorn. So for me, I'm very money driven. I've always been motivated by money. That's a thing for me. So I know that my happiness contributes to that. What my W-2 was 4 or 5 years ago is not an indication of what it'll be this year. If I keep looking in the past, then I'll always be stuck in the past. But if I look forward, where there's more opportunities and I focus on what's ahead of me, then I have a higher percentage of doing better than I did the year before. So I leave it off with trust the process. There's things that are put in place, follow them, lean on the people that actually want to help you. There's more people that actually want to help than there are people that want to see you fail, right? And I feel like we live in a society today where you have to like tiptoe your way around things. And I'm not like, if I need help, I ask for help. If I don't understand, I'm going to ask questions. You know what I mean? And I think that sometimes people get afraid of sounding dumb or being uncomfortable. And that goes back to be comfortable, be used to being uncomfortable, right? And that's what you have to do. You have to ask questions. You have to be uncomfortable. You have to be in positions where you put yourself out there, right? Let people know who you are. Be yourself authentically. And ultimately, people will respect you and will want to help you progress in life. So, like, I'm super fortunate. You know what I mean? Chris Riley's, Tom Cortella, Miss Patty Thorson. You know what I mean? Like, all the coaches that I had growing up that helped along the way, kind of helped me pave who I am today. And, going back to what Chris said, all that you can do, don't expect anything from it, but pass it forward. Pay it forward is what he always said. Pay it forward.
Thank you for paying it forward, coming on this podcast and sharing your heart, your inspiration, your insight, dude. Like, I'm going to rewatch this myself.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait till the next time we have you on.
Likewise,
and
man,
we're going to have you multiple times, and it's going to be fun to see like this conversation and then the conversations after you retire and then you do your next thing. Dude, so excited for that.
Man, there's so many things that I have cooking at this moment. It'd be exciting to kind of walk through that with you. I kind of briefly talked about the whole, real estate part of the thing. Me and my brother started off at like wanting to buy. We wanted to buy a ton of properties at first.
Yeah.
And now we're more so on the development side of the house. So shout out to PDG, man, Plancher Development Group. Right now we're building 2 duplexes out in Lehigh. We have another 6 or 7 other contracts that are in place. And this is just our first year of building homes that we've already been able to land these contracts, right? Where we'll build these new homes, duplexes in these communities. So, the ultimate goal is to be one of these big developers, really make our stake.
Let's go.
Let's
go.
So I'm excited.
Well, amazing conversation. So good to have you.
Likewise.
And to the audience, thank you for showing up. Thank you for being curious to learn more, to invest in yourselves and your career. It's an abundant world. There are great opportunities out there, and they're yours for the taking. So to your success in tech sales and in life, happy selling and happy living, and we'll see you in the next one.